Coach Prime is not going to be disrespected, and the truth will come out. It doesn't matter who it is. And Coach Prime proved that this week by calling out Pittsburgh's head coach. To catch you up, a few weeks ago, Pat Narduzzi, the head coach of the Pitt Panthers, went on a little bit of a rant about Coach Prime and his use of the transfer portal. He said that's not the way it's meant to be. Speaking about the portal, he said that's not what the transfer portal rule was intended to be. It was not to overhaul your roster. We'll see how it works out, but to me, that looks bad on college football coaches across the country. The reflection is on one guy right now, but when you look at it overall, those kids have moms and dads and brothers and sisters and goals in life, and I don't know how many of those 70 guys that left really wanted to leave or they were kicked in the butt to get out. We didn't talk about this in our last video, but it sounds like Narduzzi was critical of the transfer portal last year as well, after his star wide receiver Jordan Addison transferred out to USC to play for Lincoln Riley. According to ESPN, Narduzzi called Lincoln Riley multiple times to discuss potential tampering. Now, we could do an entire video segment, an entire video series on tampering specifically. We'll save that for right now and won't go deep into it. But at the end of the day, college football is tampering right now. And every team in the nation that is successful is tampering right now. From Colorado to Alabama to Georgia to Florida State to USC to everywhere in between. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I know it's against the rules, but it just is part of the game at this moment. But Coach Prime wasn't going to let this slander slide. In a recent interview with 247 Sports, Coach Prime answered when asked about Narduzzi's comments. He said, what was his situation when he came to Pitt? He definitely had a different situation than me, Coach Sanders said. He is not mad at me. He's mad at the situation in football right now that allowed his best player to leave a year ago. Again, talking about Addison. Coach Prime, again, he's not mad at me. He's using me to shoot bullets at another coach who he had issues with. I don't know who he is. If he walked in here right now, I wouldn't know him. Coach Prime is honestly one of the best interviews that ever was. If you watched him on the NFL Network during draft coverage or during any kind of Monday night, whatever, he was always fantastic. But I want to talk about our big takeaways that we had in the past. We're going to also look forward to the biggest part of Coach Prime's clapback that I think people are missing. But first of all, what we told you earlier, Pat Narduzzi needs to mind his own business. Coach Prime is the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, and he will coach, recruit, and use the transfer portal the way that he wants to. The way that within the rules and within the guidelines of the NCAA, he is allowed to do. It is no one else's business, and certainly not a coach of a team in the ACC business what Coach Prime does. Number two, Coach Prime's not doing anything else that other coaches haven't already done. Narduzzi talked about the number of guys that left the program, and it is a lot. Don't get me wrong. But as a Florida State guy, as somebody who has watched my head coach absolutely use the transfer portal, what's the difference if that happens in one offseason or in 3 off seasons? Because it's been pretty similar at Florida State. The time difference is the big question. So is Coach Prime somehow worse of a guy than Mike Norvell because he did it over 1 offseason instead of Mike Norvell bringing in a huge number of guys over 3 off seasons? I don't think so. I think that at the end of the day, you need the guys on your roster that are going to help you compete and win championships. And if Coach Prime thinks he needs to do that quicker than Mike Norvell did, I have no issue with it. Narduzzi has had over 35 transfers from Pittsburgh in the last 3 years, according to On3's results there. So because Coach Prime, again, did it in 1 offseason instead of 3, he's the bad guy, I think that's pretty hypocritical. Narduzzi also said that this wasn't what the transfer portal was made for. And I take big issue with that. Please point me to the rules or the bylaws that the NCAA set with the transfer portal or the guidelines for what it was set up for. Because I haven't seen those. I think it's pretty irresponsible of Narduzzi to say this, and I'm glad that Coach Prime answered back the way that he did and stuck up for himself. I think there's a big part of this that people are missing, and I want to tell you why I'm proud of Coach Prime and the way that he responded and why he's so much different than most coaches, But first, I do want to tell you about our friends over at Gramco. If you haven't tried them yet, they're the Delta 8 company that we partnered with here in the great state of Florida. Not sure where you're watching from. Do me a favor and comment down below where you're watching from. Maybe we'll pick 2 people and send out a Gramco gift card to get you guys hooked up. But comment below where you're watching from. We'll pick 2 of you again to get you some Gramco hooked up. If you go to thegramco.com, thegramco.com, we'll link it in the description and use code PRIMETIME. That's all one word, PRIMETIME. You'll get 20% off the best Delta 8 products on the market. They are a phenomenal company that I'm proud to partner with. College football fans just like you and I, they're excited to see what Coach Prime is going to do. If you are interested in their products, they have samples and different things on their website that you should absolutely go check out. You should absolutely go take advantage of. I appreciate them for their support, and I would love if you went and checked out their products. Again, comment below. We'll get 2 of you some gift cards to Gramco, and thank you guys for checking them out. Okay, here's my big takeaway. Here's why Coach Prime is different. But we see beefs between coaches all the time. And I don't think this is some major beef that was going to have a big running time, or any kind of clapback here, there, whenever. But this was 3 weeks ago that Narduzzi said this. And Coach Prime didn't just run to social media. He didn't just spout off or fire off out of emotion. He didn't just make a reaction just because he felt like he needed to defend himself. And he probably would have never even addressed this. I don't want to speak for him and say that he would have never addressed it. But do you understand how he did address it? He addressed it in an interview with 247 Sports. He answered it as a question that was asked to him. Again, 3 weeks later, not, the next day, not a few hours later where he would get into an emotional reaction. He was asked about it in an interview, and that's how he responded. He doesn't care what other coaches think. He doesn't think he needs to defend himself or his image or his program or the way he recruits or the way he uses the transfer portal. None of that's important to him. Coach Prime is laser focused on his job, and his job is to make sure that the kids in Boulder are thriving, to make sure that the Colorado Buffaloes are a competitive and great football team, and make sure that he gets the best talent possible out to Boulder. His job isn't to worry about what other coaches say. His job isn't to worry about how other coaches recruit. You want to know something? Kirby Smart and Nick Saban are out recruiting Coach Prime at the high school level right now. Is Coach Prime spouting off about them? No, they're out recruiting everyone at the high school level right now. So it wouldn't make sense to spout off about them. Coach Prime is out recruiting everyone at the transfer portal level, as 247 Sports reports that he has the #1 transfer portal class. But you don't see Coach Prime out here jealous of what other teams are doing. You don't see Coach Prime out here spouting off about other teams that maybe have better odds to win the championship or maybe brought in the #1 player in this class or that class. Coach Prime's focused on his role, and Coach Prime's focused on his job. And that's a lesson that Pat Narduzzi could take. Maybe if he was worried about his own job, and maybe if he was worried about his own transfer portal recruiting, he wouldn't have such a poor transfer portal class as it is right now anyway. He wouldn't have a recruiting class that's ranked behind Coach Prime's either. Maybe Narduzzi is jealous. Maybe he's just salty. Either way, that's not Coach Prime's problem. Coach Prime is focused on the right things. And that is recruiting, development, and making Colorado the best possible football team that he can. It'll be interesting to see if there's any kind of response back from Narduzzi. If Narduzzi gets salty about other things, maybe after Colorado upsets TCU in week 1, maybe Narduzzi will have comments about that as well and, really spout off on how it's not fair that Coach Prime in Colorado upset TCU. And if he hadn't gotten so many transfers and so many guys out of the portal, they wouldn't have a chance. And so it doesn't even count that Colorado won week 1. It's just not fair to the rest of college football. I don't know, obviously being facetious there, but I'm interested to see if Narduzzi says anything. It would be wise of him, and it would be smart to let this lie, because you're not going to win against Coach Prime. He's the best interview in all of college football. He's one of the best interviews in any kind of realm of football. And he's got a loyal fan base and a loyal following that's going to defend him and not let people make arrogant, ignorant statements like Pat Narduzzi did. I really, really did like Coach Prime's response. I like the way that he didn't personally go out there and attack Narduzzi. I like the subtle shade that he threw of, I wouldn't even know the guy if he walked in here. But I believe that. How many times do you think Pat Narduzzi and Coach Prime have run into each other? I was pretty surprised when Narduzzi even made his comments because I just didn't think there was really a connection or a reason to. Coach Prime hadn't taken any massive star off of his roster and hadn't gotten somebody that Narduzzi wanted. I mean, Pat Narduzzi went and got a quarterback from Boston College this year in the portal, who was probably the best player on Boston College's team. And so I just think it's hypocritical. I'm glad that Coach Prime responded the way that he did, with class, with dignity, and not of his own volition. He did it when asked about it in an interview. He didn't spout off on social media. He didn't go crazy just trying to stoke a fire that didn't need to be stoked. He went out, did his job, recruited, grabbed guys in the transfer portal, and when he was asked about it, he answered in a very good way. Coach Prime's an absolute great leader. His players can take an absolute example from this on how to deal with negative comments, negative sayings, negative things that will come your way. Let it roll off your back and just keep working. Appreciate you guys for watching. If you've missed any of our content, we'll link a couple of videos on the screen that YouTube thinks you should watch. Make sure that you are locked in and subscribed. Tell me where you're watching from. We'll enter a couple of you to win a Gramco gift card. Make sure that you are keeping your eyes on the comments. We want to, if we comment back to you, you got to respond and send us your email so that we can get that to you. Thank you guys, as always, for watching the Prime Time for college football.